Did you ever wonder why the scale of your Blender models is all whack and rotations are all weak? Did you ever wonder of a brighter future where all software developers use the same axis model? Well, you're in good luck. I can help you with the first problem. I can do squat about the second. This is a straight-to-the-point guide/primer on exporting your animated armatures and models from Blender to Unity. I will not only show you what checkmarks and parameters to set, but also explain and show what they do and why I check or uncheck them with practical examples. For the reference, I am using Blender 4215 LTS and Unity Editor 6059 F2. So let us hit export in Blender and don't change anything. Just go with the standard parameter set and move down the list from here. We bring it into Unity and what the hell is this garbage? If you're like me and you tend to have everything in your Blender file, then you need these two checkmarks. Only export visible and selected objects. Don't forget to select what you want to export in the scene. When exporting a rigged model, you need both the armature and the model. If I have several skins for the same armature, I can export them all together so that I don't breed repeat armatures in my Unity project, but that may not work for everyone. So now we don't have any extra junk, only what we need. Let's check if animations were brought without issues. And okay, they were, but why do I have duplicates of them? It's because there are two main ways to export animations, from actions and from NLA strips, or non-linear animations. The thing is, and this may depend on how exactly are you working with animations, you only need either one or the other. If you choose actions, the armature will have every single action associated with it carried over. If you want to remove some of these actions in Blender, you have to delete them from your file completely. You cannot cherry pick which actions you export with the armature. They all get carried over. You also can't order them around. They are sorted automatically by name. If you choose NLAs, you have to manually write all of them over here, but you can cherry pick and reorder them. In Unity, this order will be reversed though, and the first animation in the list will be the default state for all the previews. Let me demonstrate. If I get some animation which starts on a non-default pose and put it all the way down here, when I import it into Unity, this animation is now ordered first in the list, and every time you look at this model or take it out into the world, it will default to the first pose in this animation. You cannot reorder animations in Unity, so you're stuck now. I suggest putting something like 0 default animation at the bottom of this NLA list in Blender. Hold on, if you look inside the prefab and click on the model, it has a scale of 100. Uh-oh, that's not good. So this is its actual scale. Look at the little itty-bitty dude. Naturally, you want your imported thinnies without any extra scalings or rotations. This is an easy fix. Luckily, we touch this scale option and pick FBX All. Naturally, keep the scale slider at 1. Double check the model scale in Blender 2. Alright, the scale is proper now, but if you look inside the FBX prefab, why is the model lying face down? I mean, it doesn't matter per se, as long as it's tied to the armature, but it gives me a bad vibe, like I'm ignoring a ticking bomb under my seat. I'd rather my prefab and model did not have any unnecessary rotations. What if I want to use these models separately somewhere? Or if my character consists of many models? Or what if, blah 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 blah. I don't want any extra garbage rotations on my parts, period. If we go back and double check, yep, all of these FBX files have the model, not the armature, model lying face down in the dirt. Prefabs on their own have weird forward directions too. In Unity, Z plus axis is the forward direction. Why does this happen? The reason is, we live in a cursed timeline, and it seems that every software developer is coming up with their own way to orient 3 axes just for fun, just to see the world burn. Well, not really. If you're trying to move a model between 2 axis systems, you're gonna have a problem. Having different up axes is bad, but manageable. You could just reorient them a bit and call it a day. But when there's a left-handed versus right-handed mismatch, you're in deep trouble. As far as I know, it's always tricky tricky to do conversion between those two. And what do you know? Blender and Unity have both discrepancies between each other. How fun! Oh well, notice how Unreal Engine just vibes by itself. This is highly cursed. I feel betrayed by humanity. Why can't we all just get along? At the end of the day, there isn't really a necessity to make axes one way or another. When the first bit of software chose a specific axis orientation, there shouldn't have been any reason to come up with another one because they're all just arbitrary. There is an argument to be made about X and Y being the main axes to walk into D, so naturally Y becomes the up axis, and Z, as this third dimension axis, must be forward-backward axis. That's how game engines usually do it. Blender doesn't. Blender has Z as its up axis. I've read an interesting rumor about how this came to be, something about Bill Gates and competition. I can't find the source of this story anywhere, so maybe I'll tell it some other time. Alright, let's set our forward and up axis in accordance with Blender's environment. In Blender, forward direction is -Y. How do I know that? Well, if you press numpad 1, you'll be taken to orthographic front view. Wait, but does it mean the direction of the model is -Y, or is the view direction? Are we looking in the forward direction, which is +Y, or is the forward direction looking at us, which is -Y? Listen, everyone models their stuff this way, so this must be right. Nobody makes models that face away from the front view, so the forward direction must be -Y, and up direction is Z. Set that up and load it into Unity. And the model is lying flat again. Drat. But wait, let me tell you about... This checkmark is crucial for the Blender Unity pipeline. I never did understand what does it actually do. The answer lies in this topic from 2020. Let's read it together. Without bake axis conversion checked, the mesh is imported 90% off in the x-axis, and this is compensated by adding a -90 degrees rotation on the game object transform. Yep, that's what happens. With bake axis conversion checked, the mesh is imported in the correct direction, but the prefab is generated with an extra 180 degrees on the y-axis, which is causing the model to be added to the scene looking backwards. Okay. For animated objects, the extra rotation happens on any children transforms that contains meshes and rig armatures, so it's the problem we're going to have. Blah blah blah, I noticed the same behavior. It seems to come from the fact that Unity uses a left-handed coordinate system, but Blender uses a right-handed one. There we go, folks. That's where the devil is. So after looking at the FBX Exporter in Blender, misunderstanding about the coordinate system in Blender. The coordinate system in Blender is defined as right-handed with +Y forward and +Z up. The problem comes from the fact that Blender defines looking from the -Y axis as the front view, and that's what I've been saying. That's what we've been talking about. Suzanne is also oriented to look in the -Y direction, and every Blender file I know of is always built with the assumption that a model is looking forward in the -Y direction. But during export, it is assumed that +Y direction corresponds to forward, the way the coordinate system is defined. Blender applies the 180 rotation from +Y to -Y to all root objects. Son of a bitch. Oh, it seems they have already patched that out in 2020. Yep, it happened in August. A quick comment. What works for us based on blah 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 blah. Okay, so you put axis as -Y forward, Z up, and uncheck use space transform, and also check bake axis conversion in Unity. Okay, I guess we have our answer. Speaking from the year 2025, this does work, but I mean the model is correct, but the prefab faces away from the camera when I take it out into the scene. Oh, that's right, they said not to use space transform. Let's uncheck the box, bake the axis conversions again, and yep, now it works. Sheesh. The prefab is facing the correct way when dragged into the scene. The model is facing the correct way, which means it doesn't have any rotations added to it. But All of the previews of these FBX appear to be facing backwards in the editor. Shit. Does it matter? I think it doesn't. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure what space transform even does. Apply global space transform to the object rotations. Does it mean that it adjusts for the fact that Blender's forward direction is actually plus Y, but minus Y became the actual model forward? This is a fucking mess. Let me just say, this is all a fucking mess. Jesus H. Christ. Well, anyway, don't forget to uncheck the use space transform. Uncheck it. Leave it unchecked. What if we just use plus Y as the forward direction then, if it's actually Blender's forward axis? Well, now the dummy is facing the opposite direction, as expected. If we enable space transform, the prefab is rotated correctly prior to baking conversions. But we need to do it because the model is lying flat again, and it didn't do anything. The model is still facing backwards. You might be screaming at the screen right now, just turn the model around, you idiot. You know, to make it face into plus Y direction. And yep, that does the trick. The prefab is now rotated correctly. The model is rotated correctly. The previews are facing the other way. We've arrived at the same result as we've already got. Adding use space transform, same result, no effect whatsoever. So the best we can do is prefab is facing forward, the model is facing forward, but model previews are facing backwards. I haven't found a way to deal with that to this day. You either find a way to avoid baking axis conversions, which always makes the actual model have additional rotations applied, or you just have backwards facing previews. None of these feel like a universally correct solution, but I know which one I prefer. There's also this parameter, apply transform. You usually check it when working with static objects because it makes sure all of your objects' additional offsets are baked and zeroed before exporting. There's a little warning about using it for amateur/rigged meshes, and for a good reason. I always had problems with it. Let me show you. I don't think it breaks anything anymore, to be honest. It doesn't really give any new results either. We arrive at the same conclusion. Good prefab, good model, bad preview. If we use it in conjunction with use space transform, we don't see anything new. Rotate it in Blender how you want. We arrive at the same conclusion as before. So in the end, why make extra steps, right? Now, quickly about other parameters. Apply modifiers. Usually leave it checked to bake my modifiers, but I also usually don't have any. This doesn't seem to have any effect on the armature, even though it's also a modifier. I don't know, it's irrelevant. Triangulate faces. I leave it checked. I'd rather Blender triangulate my model instead of Unity. Only deform bones. Isn't important for this current model, but usually this option cuts off any technical bones you might be using in Blender, as in for IK or FK rigs. You don't want them carried over to Unity. So check. Add leaf bones. Uncheck. Unity doesn't need them. There's something about how Blender and other software handle bones, but TLDR, Unity doesn't need them. Generally you shouldn't add them. I've heard other programs need them, Unity doesn't. Key all bones. Leave on. Force start/end keying. Leave off. It adds a keyframe at the start and end of your animations. Why? Just don't forget to move your keyframes back so your animations begin from 0 instead of 1. Simplify. Now this is a sneaky one. Here it doesn't do anything, but on my prior model it ate away some animation frames and completely screwed up my motions. It kinda throws away animation data it deems unnecessary, which may lead to assonance. Drop it into 0. And this is where we pick our winner. Here it is. I'm going to show you both Blender exports and Unity import presets I've got over the course of this video. I've been using these for my works and haven't run into any problems yet, except the previews facing backwards. I don't know if that's Unity's problem or Blender's. It's fine. I guess it's fine. I'm tired. I cannot fight this imperfect world forever. This must be fine. Send this video to your friend who keeps complaining about Blender to Unity exports and imports and axis conversions and so on, and give them a hug. They are in need of a hug. This shit is wild. Nobody deserves to deal with it. These problems shouldn't exist in the first place. Why did God allow this? If God's real, why didn't he influence humanity to agree on one universal access system? Think about it. Hope I've been clear and thorough enough for your taste, dear audience. See you next time, whenever that may be.